Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, welcome back to the Amazon EU Masters semi-finals. And finally, we have a series that isn't just going to end 3-0. Yesterday, obviously, we saw LDLC demolish with that 3-0 scoreline. Today, Karmine Corp is saying, not on our watch, the blue wall is being rebuilt. And they've managed to at least pick up one game here against Vitality.Bee.
Well, fun fact, K-Corp has been the only team in the entirety of quarters and semis to not actually have a 3-0 game, so...
Good job, K-Corp. I mean, Unicorns of Love didn't have a 3-0 game, 3-0 series either, because they were on the other side of it, just because they lost. I will say, though, Karmine Corp...
remaining teams.
Of the remaining teams. I will say, Karmine Corp have not beaten an LFL team in a playoffs game in EU Masters ever, even though they've won it twice. And this year, they haven't beaten an LFL team in best of fives either because they lost both of their series in the playoffs. So it's a good look for them that they've at least managed to pick up one game here. And they did it by adjusting their draft and by adjusting the way that they played the game, especially around what they were intending to do in the early game.
But this is something we asked about even going back to the first game after the Graves come through, right? Maybe a better weak side of pick or blind pick to come through. I think Sion into On in the conjunction this time around changes stylistic where you finally knew, okay, we can play a front-to-back team fight that allows us to play better around the objectives too, which of course the Drakes wasn't a big issue for them, and all of a sudden they finally started coming alive, Vitality or K-Corp around these team fights.
They banned Lee Sin,
They
finally.
True.
We saw Skeanz on a champion that was not Lee Sin, and it seemed to make him struggle a lot in the early game to find the place. On the other hand, even though I'm not happy about the Sion R5, because I was expecting Cabochard to go in really hard on an aggressive pick on the top side of the map, I'm also talking about the case that we made about Rekkles, like play around Rekkles. Don't let him dry completely on the bot side of the map, and that was also the case. You had a perma prior mid lane, and then your jungle can actually hover towards bot and hover towards top and not let anyone die, and that was the case. That was a beautiful front to back that they drafted.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like Rekkles all of a sudden got more resources where he was allowed to be played around. It was the fact that he could farm, and he wasn't just put massively behind. And I think part of that was also the fact that all of a sudden we had Hantera on something where it was not a Braum he was just running around with. It was actually a Rakan that gave him agency in the team fights as well, that allowed them to be the aggressors. And honestly, his peeling on Rakan was better than his peeling on Braum, which is quite ironic, but either way, it worked for them, and the team fightings were way better for K-Corp.
Yeah, just an incredible performance by K-Corp considering where they were just a couple of games ago. I do want to focus a little bit about how we saw Vitality.Bee trying to exploit the early game, because in previous games, they've looked down towards the bottom lane. They've constantly ganked bottom lane. Here, they said, well, SAKEN is our new target. We can't go top side, so let's see if we can catch out SAKEN and 113 in the mid lane.
Yeah, I think if you can completely choke down that Viktor in the early game and never allow him to scale safely towards the latter stages, then yes, you've got a big victory. But the thing is that every time Skeanz tried to make a play and force a play towards the mid lane, it was always replied by Hantera being there. And even though the Viktor, yes, would die, he wouldn't fall behind in CS. He would always be 20 CS up. And right here you see it again. 3 members mid from Vitality.Bee instantly replied by the 2 members from KC. And even though, yes, again, SAKEN dies, he gets that kill, so he doesn't necessarily fall behind, and the composition that Vitality.Bee had drafted would be so difficult later on to get onto that Viktor and kill him, and it proved to be the case.
And obviously having that Sion in the top lane to act as that front line just really helped you, because whenever we saw, you know, a shadow surge from the Vex coming out, it's like Sion just stands in front of it. It's like, cool, okay, well, I can just take this if I need to, or the Rakan can grab it and run away from the rest of the team. Well, let's have a look about how the sort of fights developed, because it was the first time we hadn't really seen Vitality.Bee with a lead in the early game. And then when we got to team fights that were already quite close in the previous 2 matches, here we started to see Karmine Corp really come alive.
It's almost like when you start stacking objectives in the early game and you have a team fighting composition, you can wait for the enemy to come into you instead. And I felt like this time around, just as a holistic unit, as you just mentioned, Cabochard with the R5 matchup into the Ornn, it just worked wonder, because you can go towards the Hull Breaker, you can just choke out Szygenda, which is something we haven't really seen, and then you can get a lead where you're the one who's allowed to move first. And then once again, we just saw it in the team fight. Rekkles, you know, he comes alive finally. He has a team built around him that finally allows him to play the game, and all of a sudden that also shows, right? But I mean, there's only one man we're really looking at when we're looking at these damage numbers.
And to be fair, I think he's been the only man I'm looking at, even in the 2 previous losses for Karmine Corp. SAKEN has been the key for them. His Ahri performances were incredible incredible. He was the only shining light in both of the losses that Karmine Corp suffered in this best-of series. And right here on the Viktor, he was set for success. You mentioned the frontline being given to them. We also mentioned the shadowing by Hantera and 113 to make sure that this Viktor does not fall behind. And making a composition work around SAKEN seems to be working out for them.
It definitely is. And I just want to say 47.6% damage share is absurd.
Only
like, no
half
one
of
should
your
ever
team's
have,
damage?
Yeah, only half of his team's damage. Like Rekkles put out
100%
damage
KP
numbers
as well.
Excuse me? 100%?
It's just incredible stuff from SAKEN. I think the experience he has at this sort of level of the EU Masters is definitely coming to the fore. You have to remember, Diplex in his first EU Masters ever just like jumped up through the ranks, whereas SAKEN was part of that winning roster two splits in a row and is now looking to take Karmine Corp into that next step, into the finals.
Yeah, it was the matchup we mentioned at the start of the day, and how it turned out just turned to be very Diplex favored due to the nature that he was just the one getting the resources as well. They were the one making the side lane plays. This time around, the entire stylistic of this series changed, and I think that's very important to remember. The draft this time around became something we hadn't seen throughout the entire series, because back then it was more about getting the side laners ahead, the mechanical prowess. This time around, it was a way more just fundamental League of Legends comp where we see the standard front to brag, and it seems like that team fighting setup favors K-Corp instead.
And it just feels like Diplex is also left out to dry a little bit. He's been put on Vex, which is what I call damage control. So you're trying to mitigate whatever's going to happen in the mid lane, but not necessarily have massive playmaking potential towards the latter stages of the game, right? Because Vex does really well. There's a lot of burst early on. You got the Electrocute and the Loot and Echo very early. You can burst someone down, but when it comes to the latter stages of the game, the Viktor is going to outscale you, and he is going to provide much more control in front of a team fight and much more poke.
I think generally this Karmine Corp composition did just outscale. Like, Sion's going to outscale just because he's so strong. He can build Hullbreaker. Zeri is one of the best late game AD carries in the game at the moment if you can get to a strong position with her and if you can play around teamfights and there's no point and click CC. And then obviously the Viktor, so much zone control, so much power when it comes to later game teamfights. It felt a little bit like Vitality.Bee were on a clock from the get-go, and they tried to do stuff. They tried to put SAKEN behind, but it's so much easier to answer a mid lane play if you're a support and a jungler than it is to answer the opposite side of the map, right? If the enemy team is ganking bot and you're on the top side, it's like, how do I get there? But if they answer mid, as a support, you're just like, okay, I just reset, and then I can come straight to mid lane. You actually can path through there and still get to bot lane on time.
A lot of that comes from the downturn, right? And it also comes from the bot lane priority. It's like, oh, I've pushed in my bot lane wave. There's a lot of time before I need to be back here because of the enemy will be here. But there's also the other subject, which is the opponent support roaming as well. And despite Hantera being the one who had the later reset timing, right? He was still the one who responded to every move that Vitality made. So yes, Vitality was really good at making proactive movements and putting it towards the mid lane. But the problem for them was that Hantera, he was reading the play all along. And if you want to shut down this mid lane earlier, well, maybe you need to pile down the bot lane even more and try to put Rekkles behind, as you did in the first 2 games.
I will say as well, Rakan probably one of the best reactionary, like, anti-gankers.
Oh, here he goes again.
The reason I think it is, like, Leona goes in, and then the Rakan can be, like, halfway down the lane and press E and then W. The Leona's already invested herself into that fight, right? So it's very easy on a slower reset timer as Rakan to actually get to the fight in time to save your mid lane. And I think we saw that a couple of times in this game. We are actually setting up for the next draft that will be taking on the challenge of discussing, that's not a word, discussing here on the analyst desk. If we look at this draft, like, to me, the obvious thing is, if you're Karmine Corp, just go top lane tank again. It works so well for you. You can just go team fighting, and you don't have to put yourself at this weakness of being set behind, perhaps, in the top lane or on the bot side of the map.
You know who your 2 carries are at this point, right? Rekkles and SAKEN. Just provide for them. Give them the front line. Give them the easy engage and disengage from champions like the Jarvan, like the Sion. Maybe you take the on yourself as well, right?
Sure.
I think it worked for them. The front to back is their bread and butter. They can play team fights so freaking well. So just give it to them again. But, like, if you go red side, then you have Szygenda again with the champion Ocean that can counterpick your on R5.
And that's the thing. Vitality has chosen red side in their first 2 victories as well. They were red side too. And I think in a matchup stylistically between K-Corp and Vitality, red side just offers so much more because it is about these solo laners. It is about who gets the counter pick. And I think Szygenda finally gets put in a comfort spot again where he'll be left for R5. That's how Vitality will always draft. Szygenda always gets that counter pick. Now on the 3, before the second ban phase as well, you can get Diplex counter pick. So I think despite them finally be set up for a good teamfight scenario on the side of K-Corp this time around, I think it was also due to the development of them finally having the red side, you know, them finally being in the moment where they could react to the pick coming through from Vitality.
Definitely, and bedside 100% win rate today, and it just shows how
Which has not been the case for European Masters, which is very interesting, but it's just a stylistic.
Coming into semi-finals. So we'll see if it continues that way, and if Vitality.Bee make a matchup for themselves against LDLC in the finals. We are jumping into draft. Karmine Corp, Lee Sin no more, and LeBlanc removed by a Vitality.
And just in general, I feel like that's the right call. I think they finally cracked the code a little bit on that jungle side instead. Ryze ban will probably come through from Vitality.Bee as well, just due to the fact that, well, they always ban Ryze. They don't really play the LeBlanc either. And it's interesting to see the Ahri ban come out from the side of K-Corp. I think they just fear that potential Vega to come through, but they have let this one through again.
And seeing that the Xayah ban came through as well, I'm thinking they're pushing Vitality.Bee to either ban the Volibear right here, or K-Corp can actually pick it up for themselves. But I feel like the Zeri ban does more justice, because Rekkles is a fantastic Zeri, even when he fell behind. And it's not a surprise that when the Volibear is open, it's going to get completely insta-locked.
Yeah, insta-locked there for 113. Didn't have the best of performances on it earlier today, though. And the question is, can he find that early priority, those early ganks that he often likes to look for on this Volibear?
This is very interesting. Usually we would see an AD carry jungle rotation here, and it's very curious to me that they trying to opt in for the Jarvan Volibear trade. I think they actually thought that K-Corp would go for the Jarvan instead, and they could get the Volibear, because on the side of Vitality, they've been banning Jarvan for the longest time as well, and they've never really picked it. Yes, it can still come through, but it's not a champion they've necessarily prioritized.
That is so old school. I don't know if this is the on-hit Varus or if this is the poke Varus, but usually when you would pick Varus in the bot lane, you would use it for perma-prio, so you can instantly invade towards the bot side of the map or secure early dragons, which is again how Vitality.Bee have won the first 2 games.
And the amount of CC you have from Chain of Corruption and Leona's follow-up is absolutely absurd, especially since Rekkles traditionally has been slightly allergic to taking cleanse on his AD carries. He likes to take the heal instead. We'll see if in this game he elects for that cleanse, because otherwise he is in for a world of hurt down towards that bottom side. Rakan now locked in for Hantera. I love the agency that he's going to have on that champ.
Yeah, but still into the sides of Leona. It's still laning phase Leona favored. It's a pick you often picks to get out of the map instead, and we'll probably still see a situation where Hantera is going to be the reactionary side and not so much on the proactive side. That can sometimes hurt you, but we just saw in the last game that it actually benefited them, the fact that they were able to just come in and punish here. So I feel like from the side of Vitality now, you need to respect these roam timings when Hantera is no longer on the map.
I was literally about to say, unless he locks in an Ezreal medic, but I'm like thinking of Rekkles, and Ezreal is just not the first champion that I think about when I think of him, especially when the likes of Misfortune are still into the mix. But right now, you've got to reply with your jungler, or a lot of the things that you have played as skins are going to be locked out. And usually when you have a lot of engagements in the likes of Rakan and Volibear, the things that come into mind could potentially be the Viego, that we've seen a lot as a reply from LDLC as well.
So I'm actually expecting them to get rid of an Olaf ban here as well. It's something that Skeanz has played in the past and does fairly well into Volibear as well, to answer that aggression to come through. Sinzao or Viego is 2 other bans that I expect them starting to take away here. And Vitality's draft so far is very much them. They like to just secure that mid lane on 3. They get their jungler on 4, and they always get that counter pick for Szygenda on 5. So K-Corp gets put in this position now where they either, try to trim away the jungle pool of Skeanz, or they'll try and take away some of the strengths that Szygenda would have for a potential counter pick on 5.
Looks like they're trying to remove some of those top lane tanks away from Vitality.Bee now with the Ornn ban. Cassio removed by Karmine Corp as well, so focusing towards that mid lane.
Camille
with
potentially
Nard taken away, as you say, Camille is a very real possibility here at Gorborg.
And it's just what we've seen from them so far. Once we head into the second ban phase, it's been Nautilus all the time. The second one's been Camille. The only one that's kind of coming through as an adaptation right now from Vitality is the fact that they're banning away a few mid laners and top laners here due to the fact that, support has already been picked. And yeah, and then we have it again.
And I'm seeing a lot of poke from the side of KC, right? You have the Ezreal, you usually want to pair it up with maybe some AP poke. Something that SAKEN played in the previous game that worked really well for them was the Viktor, has a lot of poke towards the latter stages of the game, and there's a lot of immobility already on the side of Vitality.Bee. So you poke them down, force them off of objectives, maybe you can get something going. But I really like if this actual pick gets locked in here, because lights out, you can make an engage or a disengage work really quickly.
Yeah, the paranoia just gives you so much control in a team fight, and the ability to get into a fight. You can get rid of the teleport possibility coming out from Cabochard in the top lane as well if he does go for something that needs to join a fight. Now Karmine Corp looking towards their top laner and their mid laner. top lane is blind, mid lane is not. What are we thinking?
Yeah, so the thing is, Sylas is already locked in, so you can't go back to the stable that would be TF, right? So I think you need to go onto one of these control mages, either Sia or the Viktor that comes through now would probably be the options. And then I think from the side of K-Corp, this is where I want to see you take that tag adaptation instead. Don't go for the Graves blind pick again. You need to go for something that gives you engage, that allows you to move forward and have SAKEN to play for.
And also, you need to be very careful on what ultimate you're going to be given over to Diplex onto the Sylas. Because so far, he's got so many engage opportunities with the Volibear and the Rakan. So if you give him something like the Sion potentially, or the Renekton being locked in here, you're giving him so much survivability in these team fights.
So this is a matchup they already played back in LFL Players in the second round robin when Vitality was playing against K-Corp. It was Cabochard's Renekton versus Szygenda's Camille, where it was Szygenda that came out on top. This time around, though, Camille has been bad, but if you want to follow the backline axis here, he can just go for the Gwen or a Kali again if he wants to. Like, there's a lot of tools available for you here that would fit with the stylistic that Vitality has drafted for themselves.
I just really like the Gwen here if he gets locked in, and he does. I think he did fantastic. And also, you sort of mitigate a lot of the dives that are coming your way, especially with Volibear, where you can deactivate the towers. You just move into your bubble, you take it away from whatever damage is coming your way, and you're trying to evade it that way. And also, I feel it's like so pivotal that you have the Nocturne right here, because Volibear wants to pull off a lot of these dives together with the Rakan. With the lights out, you don't know how many people are coming your way.
And it's interesting to see the development of draft throughout the series. Like, Game 3 was just top lane tanks. We're going to play around scaling on the side of KC. Here, once again, they do have quite a lot of scaling with the Viktor, with the Ezreal. That's going to be quite strong as the team fights go on. But do you see Vitality.Bee having the opportunities to shut Karmine Corp down before they get there?
100%. And I think the main issue for me right now is all the frontliners from this side of K-Corp. They're only pseudo-frontliners. You don't have that beefy Sion that you had in the last game. So yes, SAKEN can get ahead now. Maybe even Rekkles on the Ezreal. But the amount of backline dive you have now from Vitality, there's not that much peel as well. Yes, you have some few stunts to come through from Renekton and Volibear, but they're so easily persuaded, and they can be one-shot as well.
Yeah, it's do or die for Karmine Corp as they are one game away from being eliminated. Vitality.Bee, one game away from making it into the finals against LDLC. Munch and the team and the squad and the dudes and the cool kids, take it away.
The cool kid.
The cool kid? I mean, you guys, I don't know, is cool kids really the right phrase? I don't know. Well, look, I didn't mean it, Ox. I'm sorry, buddy. Look,
the cast?
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Well, yeah, welcome back to game number 4 coming in for Karmine Corp and Vitality.Bee. I'm Dagda, this is Ox, this is Munch, who's decided to join us again.
Yeah, I would have committed to taking it off, but it's clipped to the back of my shirt, so I couldn't actually get the heads off. We're going into game number 4 here in our semi-finals of the Amazon EU Masters. It's an all-LFL semi-final. If you've been living under a rock, it was 2-0 to Vitality.Bee until game 3, where K-Corp finally showed up and showed us what they were made of. And now the draft continues to develop as Vitality.Bee back on the red side once more.
And it feels like, for me, Karmine Corp need to hit the ground running in this game, specifically around that top side. It feels like if you're not getting these early dives off with Cabochard, maybe with some help from SAKEN roaming up towards the top side, this Renekton pick is just going to get completely outscaled by what Vitality.Bee are bringing to the table.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like even by level 6, I think that's where things become really difficult, because the Nocturne is now available, so your aggression gets shut down by the fact that Skeanz can just turn up. Bot lane becomes problematic when you get the Chains of Corruption and the Solar Flare from the Leona. Really easy to find, lockdown, and engage, especially as Rekkles is still refusing to take cleanse no matter what. And I feel ultimately, Karmine Corp, you know, the only major scaling element I feel they have is the Viktor, but he is going to have such a hard time in this game up against what Vitality.Bee has, so I need to see them have that early momentum.
Yeah, and again, you're going to be keeping your eyes on 113. Does have at least the advantage in the matchup in the early stages. Nocturne traditionally wants to try and farm until level 6 as quickly as possible, get that access to the paranoia, so having a bit more breathing room for this Volibear could be great, but
Already an all-in the bottom side. Rekkles forced to flash and heal. There's a couple more autos will come through. I don't think a kill can come out of this one, but Vitality.Bee consistently dominating in the 2v2.
Yeah, and you're so happy with that trade, right? Because it's a Leona who has Hex Flash, so you're not as concerned about burning your flash early. Of course, Rekkles does get the Arcane Shift at level 2, but he constantly has to be on edge.
And I love the early ward from Jeskla as well, because Rekkles.
Another stun, a flash forward, and Jeskla looking for first blood against his old inspiration.
Beautiful play from the Vitality.Bee bot lane. Jeskla with the flash over, and Rekkles once again stepping too far forward in lane, and Vitality.Bee punish.
This is the problem, right? Rakan, if you W in, it's so telegraphed, so slow, an aggressive lane can easily flash over it, and so you don't offer much level 1, and it's an Ezreal as well. Really just does not able to survive before he hits that level 2 and gets the arcane shift.
And really nice job from Jactroll there. Hides in the bush, no vision from Karmine Corp, and Rekkles just takes that step too far. Even the ward in that tribe rush as well to spot if Volibear was going to try and make some kind of level 2 gank, and super well orchestrated by the Vitality.Bee bot lane.
Absolutely beautiful, and Rekkles goes to this Ezreal. It's something that he's played countless times over the years. He's played everything countless times over the years, but getting caught out in the laning phase when Ezreal is at his weakest. And just getting caught out by Jactroll, who's been really aggressive in the 2v2, and Jeskla happy to flash forward and put his foot down.
It feels though like we're not seeing Karmine Corp really like set up for those early plays though. Like you're seeing SAKEN pushing mid. He would have the potential here to roam up topside, play off the big wave. Cabochard is stacking with 1-1-3 on topside, but they're not going for it. And even Skeanz is kind of perplexed by this because he's here to cover.
He certainly is, and Cabochard gonna have to dash over the wall. Will survive at least, keeps himself safe on this one, but so far, so good for the side of Vitality.Bee with a small gold lead. But I'm looking at SAKEN once again. He's on this Viktor. Can he set up the same situation against the Sylas, though?
I think the problem is, even if the lane goes well, you're just going to have a much harder time as the game goes on. I feel like, we talked about how the flank potential was trying to be found in game 1, and there was a bit of a struggle for Vitality.Bee. Nocturne's just like the cheat code, right? You just make it so easy to find flanks. We talked about how vision control is super important for defending against flanks. The Nocturne also just turns that off. It just makes it very hard to play against. So even if SAKEN does get fed, there's no guarantee he'll be able to survive.
And it's not only just Skeanz, right? Diplex has access to a ton of ultimates that make diving really successful. You look at the quickness, you look at the Volibear ult, you look at the Renekton ult. These are all tools that are so good for a Sylas that wants to get in on the backline.
Yeah, a lot of the ults are really good for Sylas, the ones that increases durability. Things that give him health, like Swain ultimate, Volibear and Renekton ultimate both give health. They make him really bulky, but they still add the extra damage, so you can't just burst through him. So a lot of great choices, and as you said, the quickness as well just means you have so much more disruption.
I feel like we should talk about these top laners a little bit as well, because Cabochard going with the Renekton, which I think is a controversial pick in the League of Legends community. But when you look at the difference in experience between these players, obviously Cabochard outstripping Szygenda. I should really struggle with his name. I don't know what it is. In terms of that sheer experience, it's got a bit of an invade from Jeskla and Jactroll. I'm going to cut my thought off because the AD carry and support are invading onto 1-1-3 here. Now moving mid lane to punish SAKEN as well. This is some creative bot laning from Jeskla and Jactroll.
Just trying to see if they can make the most work. But look, Jeskla and Jactroll, they haven't quite been able to find the CS lead, as you were saying. 34 CS there for Rekkles. And even with that early kill going across, at least you're seeing Rekkles and Hantera kind of riding the shift a little bit with the way that this early lane has gone post that kill.
I think, as of now, the fact that even gold, nothing's really happened for 1-1-3. At level 6, he's going to get that spike, right? Obviously, you can orchestrate dives quite easily with it. But I just feel like the tools Vitality.Bee get are more significant, especially if they want to make a play on the bot side when they have all the setup. If they want to go for a dragon as well, they have everything available. Skeanz is resetting. Oh, actually, he's going to stop that.
We're going to have a 2v2 on the top side. Szygenda, low on HP, or low on mana, sorry, on this one. Does have one last stack of the needlework, but with both junglers here, you expect this to be deterred ultimately. And, or maybe not.
But these are the plays I need to see with SAKEN. SAKEN now roaming up, but the wave will probably be dead by the time he gets there. We'll have to see.
Hantera not winning out that trade, but actually Ignite going to be dropped onto Jactroll. Szygenda pushed away, separated from his jungler, and his Skeanz defending the tower, clearing the ways. Diplex moves over as well as SAKEN. We've got a 3v3 on our hands, but Szygenda's so low on HP and mana. I don't feel like it's a very even fight.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that Szygenda doesn't have his ultimate available, they don't really want to go for that, but Skeanz might actually be in trouble here.
I've never seen a jungler solo dived in the top side before, but with his solo lanes here as well, perhaps SAKEN could be the target instead. Gonna get a lot of damage down. Stunned though, Diplex can't move, and he's cut down, bitten into by 113.
He needed to ult way sooner off the back of that. Had the Volibear ult, does give the damage, but also gives you health, gives you the ability to escape away from the stun because he can't be CC'd. And unfortunately for Diplex, even with the flash, ends up giving across his life.
Yeah, you can definitely see he felt a bit tentative. He was just going for a short trade, but as soon as he got stunned, you could see K-Corp just fully committed. Both flashes burned from Cabochard and 113 to ensure the CC layering.
And it was these early mistakes in Game 3 that brought Karmine Corp to their big advantages, right? SAKEN specifically was the one that was having help from Hantera, having help from 113, that got this Viktor to be the monster that it was. And we're kind of seeing these little mistakes once more from Diplex, giving those kills across the Karmine Corp.
You can see the CS numbers, right? 20 CS lead now for Cabochard off that play. Pretty solid CS lead for SAKEN in the mid lane as well, as he made sure he had prio before moving. And the Rekkles as well, despite the fact he died in the early levels, able to build up this substantial lead over Jeskla. So this is kind of the Karmine Corp that we expected, that we've seen in the tournament, where they just win all their lanes.
I don't know why it took them 2 games to get to this form, but they are looking good now that we're into Game 3 and 4. Feels like Karmine Corp are back on form again, and that's a scary thought for Vitality.Bee, because they would love to make it to the finals. They'd love to prove themselves. Feels like maybe Karmine Corp will deny it.
And I think we'll have to start looking at Skeanz to see if he can right this wrong, right? He's got the level 6 that's been hit now, has access to the paranoia, but when you look at where Karmine Corp are positioned on the map for this Rift Herald, doesn't feel like you've really got the tools here as Vitality.Bee to fight for this objective. Although, as I say that, Rekkles still in the spot side, and Jeskla considering going towards the Rift Herald, but will now match the push in the bottom lane.
So Rekkles going to try and go for that tower, but as you said, Jeskla will answer. And that means we could have a 4v4 on the top side. And I'm going to be honest, looking across items, looking across who has the gold, feels like KC right now a little bit stronger.
Yeah, especially when you look at Diplex, right? No access to an ultimate as of yet, because he stole that Volibear ult. It's going to take a while for that one to come back up. So you don't have real pressure in the mid lane. You don't really have any big source of damage for this fight. So, I mean, you're better off here as Vitality.Bee, looking to see if you can go for a cross map, especially if you can shove mid with Jactroll and Skeanz. Maybe look for a dive up bot, maybe look for a dragon for yourselves while Karmine Corp are committed to this top side.
And this is the thing, right? Renekton, his items got nerfed, so he no longer holds up as well on like the 2-item spike compared to when he had Gordrink, Asterix being super strong. But he is still so good in this early Herald fight, right? So much power with that ultimate. Don't really want to tango. They will take the dragon on the other side though, so it's definitely, you know, balancing things out, and Jeskla getting to farm up a bit in the bot lane, so it's not horrific. And I think Vitality.Bee made the right call ultimately not to fight the Herald.
Even getting the reset here for Diplex as well means that now he can match the lost chapter, so he's going to have a little bit of an easier time in this mid lane. So overall, I think Vitality.Bee playing it smart and kind of playing towards what their win conditions are, right? We talked about how they want to try and play off of like Jeskla hitting his 2 items, Diplex as well getting access to this Everfrost and maybe a Shadow Flame. Like, this is where you're kind of looking for Vitality.Bee to see if they can fight against Karmine Corp and look for that backline access, particularly onto vulnerable members like SAKEN.
I think one of the interesting things in this game as well, since it has been a fairly quiet one, the top laners, both on carries, both on picks that they can really influence the mid game on, we might see a bit of action as we see Jactroll and Skeanz moving in as well. But Cabochard, remember, he spent the majority of his storied career on Vitality, and now they want to show him that he's no longer welcome, but he gets the sustain, gets the healing. Ignite is there, the Slithers snip, and Jactroll finishes the job.
But this is such a risky play when the enemy team has Herald, because this gives them... doesn't kill, but does clip. But now if you look mid lane, they can just throw the Herald down. You know where the enemy team is. You know where so many members are. It gives you this free pass to throw it down. And so much damage is done to this mid-tier 1. Diplex can just watch.
And now SAKEN has already been able to push in this lane. He'll be able to push it right the way to the tier 2. And suddenly you don't get to control River anymore as Vitality.Bee. It becomes a lot more difficult if that mid lane turret goes down. Now, still will stay standing for the moment. But you can imagine that, you know, 113 SAKEN off these next wave pushes, maybe bring Hantera up, take that and take over the river area.
All right, chaps, what's the game plan here for Vitality.Bee? Because game number 1 and 2, it felt like they had complete control early on. It felt fantastic for them. Like, is this Viktor just ruining everything? How do they take control of the series again?
Well, I think ultimately it comes down to performing in the team fights. I think you have so many exceptional tools. Realistically, Ezreal does scale fine. Viktor does scale exceptionally, but I think Viktor's going to struggle really hard to team fight into this. It's about getting set up at objectives like the Dragon, and then you let you can let K-Corp push in and use that lack of vision to collapse on the backline. If you find flanks, you will win the team fights.
Yeah, and even if they don't want to go for the team fights, right? Like, their side lane pressure is kind of insane. Like, Gwen going to scale really well against the Renekton. You've got Diplex who can play sides, Nocturne to kind of facilitate both that. Now, it's not exactly something that we've seen from Vitality in the long run, but it is an option there if they want to try and go towards it.
I think ultimately, if the game is going slow and you're mitigating pressure, you're in a good spot, which is why that first dragon is so important, because it just adds 5 minutes to a timer. If K-Corp get every dragon, then you have more time to sort of scale up and lean to the later stages, because right now, you know, top is at a disadvantage, mid is at a disadvantage. You just need time.
And I will say, whoever gets Dragon Soul, 100% win rate in this series so far. Granted, it's not necessarily felt that impactful in a couple of those games, and game one certainly not great for the statistics, but ultimately, whoever's controlled the Drake has been the winner of each game in the series. So Vitality-Bee off to a good start. It's just whether or not they can maintain that control.
Also, I would just quickly add, whichever team has destroyed the enemy Nexus has won 100% of the games in this series.
And have had an extra 50 gold off the back of it as well. So
yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic stuff.
What
it's great analysis. This is why we bring you on the show, Ox.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's really cool to see that, like, on the bottom side, Jeskla still kind of maintaining the fact that he gets a lot of free time with turret. He's the one who's getting a lot of those resources for Vitality-Bee. When we look at Karmine Corp, it has been much more about trying to play towards this top side. Now, granted, the draft does try to play to that style, but I think we're still seeing these, like, very different styles from Vitality-Bee and Karmine Corp kind of play out in this series. It's just been a case of Vitality-Bee in at least game 3, haven't been able to get their footing properly into the game where Jeskla can be a threat.
The second I see Hantera on Rakan moving remotely close to Jeskla, my brain screams, this is an all-in, this is an all-in, this is an all-in. I've seen too many LPL Rakans that just want to fight all the time. Hantera playing this one relatively safe, especially after the early 2v2s, right? It's not really a fight. With Ezreal early on, you're not trying to find those scraps right now.
Moving up towards the top side, Vitality-Bee with Jactroll here has Skeanz just lingering in behind them, but I think they're going for the top lane.
They might well do that. Cabochard trying to start things off onto Szygenda here, gets the stun, but in comes the jungler. The needlework doing big damage on the Croc. The fear is there, and here comes SAKEN, but he might be too late to the play. Bit of laser, SAKEN on the front line here, low on HP, but the bear comes down, 1-1-3, 2v1. Hantera comes in as well, and KC turn it once more. Szygenda burning down, one more Glimmer Quill would do the trick. Hantera flashes for a bit of violence of his own. Diplex, though, wants to answer in a 2v1, but Hantera dashes away, dodges around, and makes the MVP play.
Hantera huge in that one, finishes off Szygenda, and honestly, I feel like when Viktor TP'd in, with Renekton having died, it might be an unfortunate position, but the Rakan ensures the positive play and even out-jukes Diplex to get away.
Hantera on this Rakan has been so crucial for Karmine Corp. We saw it in game 3, now we're seeing it in game 4. It's just about being able to keep Karmine Corp within that touching distance, and you can see here, right? Szygenda hides in the bush, catches Cabochard out, and you've already got the reinforcements moving up here with the Nocturne being able to use that ultimate to close the gap first. And at this stage, I thought, same as Ox, like this is where it starts to go a little bit messy, but 1-1-3 able to follow up really well. Szygenda gets zoned out by the gravity field, so he's not able to get into this fight as quickly as they'd like. And then Hantera just being able to get up here that little bit quicker means that they're able to turn this one back as well.
That combo between the Chaos Storm from the Viktor and 1-1-3 dropping everything as well did so much damage.
And that final dodge at the end, Hantera, am I right? With the little dash at the last second. That's going to be a Drake, though. Taken for K-Corp off the back of the plays on the top side. And it has to be said, 1-1-3, easily the best game of his series so far today, right? Feels like he's got his Volibear, he's in a good matchup, and he is loving life.
And I think that's why we've kind of been looking at like the strength of these junglers, but here we go.
SAKEN's in trouble, the fear finally comes on through, but actually it's Skeanz that just gets destroyed by the Chaos Storm. Cabochard roamed down as well, and it's 2 on the board as Cabochard gets a bit of credit for himself. And Cabochard now wanting a bit of revenge against his own org, it seems.
Again, a brilliant turnaround for Karmine Corp in the mid lane. Every time they seem to look sideways at SAKEN. Hantera's there, the cavalry's there, and it just feels like you're not respecting the fact that Dragon has just gone over, there's going to be multiple people in the vicinity, and they get caught out by it.
It feels so overforced. And, you know, we were saying that felt like Vitality-Bee didn't need to be so desperate, but you know there's so many members of K-Corp there. Cabochard has moved down, the rest are overshadowing. If you don't immediately kill the Viktor, you're going to lose out on the trade, and the fact that they didn't get him at all is just devastating.
Now you get the Dragon, now you get the kills, you get the Rift Herald for 1-1-3. Now Karmine Corp can start to get that ball rolling, which is what we wanted from them, right? Get SAKEN to a position where he's going to be really comfortable. Well, he's well on his way there. Cabochard as well, 1-2-2, hasn't had the best starts, but has an advantage over Szygenda, which denies a lot of Szygenda on that side lane pressure, provides a little bit of that bulky front line you need, and Karmine Corp now, with the mid lane turret down, can start to pressure these side lanes so effectively.
And it feels to me like now that KC have got Cabochard on a pick that he can influence these early skirmishes in a big way, and 1-1-3 on an aggressive jungler that can also impact these early skirmishes, now they're feeling comfortable. Now they're in control of the early game. I'm loving this little combo of the Croc and the Bear. And it feels like KC, they finally figured out how to draft around Vitality.
Well, Vitality.Bee have to figure out how to deal with these dives, because it feels like we've got another one coming in, although 1-1-3.
1-3 rooted, but Diplex takes a lot of damage for his trouble. Jactroll jumps in, but I don't know if that was the best decision he's ever made. The tower goes down, and it's just more gold into the blue pockets here. Very nicely done as K-Corp continued to snowball, and this is easily the biggest lead we've seen the series at 18 minutes.
And we're starting to see, honestly, the Jactroll not on the same page as Vitality.Bee. Everyone else was backing off. Jactroll goes in, and it's now starting to cause major issues.
I will say, though, just seeing that trade there between Szygenda and Cabochard, we're starting to see some of the issues in the side lane. The fact that the Gwen, despite being a little bit down in terms of items, not too much, but still just absolutely decimating in that short trade, does make me worry. If Vitality.Bee can enable the side lanes and not give up too much from these pushes K-Corp are making, that is definitely an opportunity in this game.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's Vitality.Bee's best way into this game. I think you've got too big for... SAKEN's like getting too big at this stage. Nearly the Rabbit on deck cap completed once more. I honestly think your best way to try and play this out is, as Ox is saying, through sides, enable Skeanz to approach both Szygenda and Diplex from the mid lane. And honestly, when you've got a poke Varus, you should be able to get priority over this mid lane relatively easy. If they could get this mid lane turret down, that would just be the cherry on top for Vitality.Bee.
Honestly, I think this is a big issue, is the mid-tier 1 still being up and available, because it just means SAKEN can position, clear out waves consistently, or you, in this situation, have Rekkles there, and it's so hard to dive because he's never really overextended. And if you're diving under the tower, it just makes things so uncomfortable. You can't push into the enemy jungle as deep. And in an ideal world, you get those out of towers. You have, say, Szygenda pushing the bot lane, and then he can rotate up and end up behind them. But it's not possible with that tier 1 there.
And I think that's why your best bet here for Vitality.Bee is actually trade Dragon for, like, tower pressure. Make sure that you're able to actually get some presence on the map. You can already see it looks like Skeanz is considering that, at least playing up towards this top side. They may just give this second Dragon to Karmine Corp so they can set up the map properly to play through that style.
Herald down to the bottom side here. SAKEN will be able to finish the tower off alongside that. Forces priority. Jeskla charmed up, knocked up, taken down, and Rekkles says he's still the granddaddy of AD carry. It's a pick in the mid lane. It's a tower in the bottom lane, and it's surely a guaranteed Drake.
I mean, there's just nobody here to try and defend against it, and Karmine Corp are absolutely running away with this. Dragon will go their way when it spawns. You've got tier 2 now going their direction, and Szygenda, he's had to reset because he just doesn't have the pressure that he needs topside to make the play happen.
I mean, the gold lead is becoming such a massive issue here. Now, they are looking.
Here we go, pick onto SAKEN potentially. They tried it in the mid lane and it didn't work. They're trying it bot, and it just doesn't work. K-Corp denying everything Vitality tried.
And it just feels a desperation play, right? They have teleport up for both their solo laners, but no wards behind, no setup. I think if that same play happened, but there was more people to follow up, maybe it works, but that just had no chance. You saw as soon as Skeanz realized, he just flashes out, but he's already dead.
It just, again, is kind of Ox saying, like, overextensions, committing to these fights. Like, there's nobody there to really follow up, but Skeanz Diplex has already been zoned out by 1-1-3. It just feels like Vitality.Bee have now got themselves kind of choked up and not really in a position where they can fight. Like, you'll see it here, right? Diplex is on the side. Hantera is there, 1-3 is there. So when they even go for this, how do you follow up? Like, even if you don't get the TP in, it just feels like it's so hard to follow up on this engage. And now it's just giving more gold, more opportunities for Karmine Corp to close this one.
And you even had Rekkles joining at the end, right? Jeskla still dead at that point. There was just no hope. And I think when you see it from that perspective, you realize that they just never should have made the play in the first place. But you can feel they know the game is out of their control and it's slipping further and further away.
I feel like the entire game plan for KC over the last couple of minutes has been like, SAKEN, look juicy. bait him in. We'll turn the play around. And now he's got a stopwatch. So you thought it was hard to kill it before. It's only getting worse.
And I gotta say, I've been so impressed with Hantera on this Rakan. Both games now that we've seen it, it has been crucial to Karmine Corp's game plan, right? Turning around every play Vitality.Bee has essentially tried to make thus far in both the games. He's great at engage, he's great at counter-engage. Like, he has been playing an absolute stormer in these two games.
And it's such a difference from the first two games, having him on Braum. Like, the agency that a Rakan has compared to a Braum is night and day. And as much as obviously there's tons of utility from the Braum, this has enabled him, and I feel like that's the thing. He's actively doing things rather than relying on his team to stack his passive.
Certainly been able to have an impact, and I feel like him and Rekkles on the Ezreal, right? They're so mobile. We saw the pick onto Jeskla in the mid lane. I mean, Jeskla was a full screen away from them when the play started, but Hantera can close that gap on the Rakan, and Rekkles more than capable of closing the gap as well, following up on his supports engage. Jactroll tries to find an engage of his own, but misses onto 113, and I don't think they would have the damage even if they found the stuns there.
I mean, 113 can hop out with flash, he's got ult, but now you're given a ton of positioning to Karmine Corp on this top side, especially with the wave already being pushed in by SAKEN. Now you got to take the long way around as Vitality.Bee toward this tier 2 that Karmine Corp are pushing in. Karmine Corp are just playing the map so much better than Vitality.Bee right now.
I will say, we're kind of seeing a bit of an opposite game to what we saw in game number 1 of the series. So, in about 10 minutes time, it would be only polite for K-Corp to set the Baron up, walk away when it's on 1000 HP, give that one over to Skeanz as a little generous gift, and then we'll dance around the Elder Dragon for about 12 minutes. I think that's on the menu.
And then Vitality.Bee give the game back.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it'd be
gentleman's
rude
agreement.
not to, yeah. We all recall together, shake hands, pass over Christmas gifts. We'll have to see. I've got a feeling K-Corp aren't going to be on the same page as me on that one.
I mean, they look out for blood. This is the Karmine Corp that I think everyone was hoping and expecting to see coming into the series. Why everyone was expecting this series to be so close. And finally, we're seeing early game jungle pressure. Hantera on a playmaker, and SAKEN popping off.
Jactroll forced to flash, will get out with his life, but it's another summoner burnt as 113 just denying any semblance of vision. Remember, still has his flash and his ultimate. Diplex tries to get the other frost, but it's just dodged. 113, I'm not even sure he took damage in that trade. There we go, just about 100 as another all-in comes out from Vitality.Bee. Can they find the picks? Cabochard on the front line is invincible, just shredding the health bars. Diplex on the back line himself as Vitality.Bee staying stacked, protecting the carries. There's one as Hantera falls, but SAKEN on the backside. The health bars are too low. Jeskla over the wall and SAKEN trying to chase. The lasers finish him off. The burn is ticking, but Jeskla survives, so now SAKEN's in trouble. Uses his stopwatch. Szygenda can't finish the kill though. He falls instead, and KC, after a chaotic fight, still come out on top. Rekkles wants a little bit more. Doesn't have his ulti, but it doesn't matter.
And Karmine Corp are able to absorb the pressure from Vitality.Bee and turn it straight back around. Vitality.Bee tried to make the play with the lack of vision. The ult comes in from the Nocturne, but again, Vitality.Bee not in the position to follow. The TP too late from Szygenda. The Gwen isn't here, and Karmine Corp are too tanky to take down before everyone else arrives.
And critical things like this stopwatch from Hantera buying so much time, the ult from Jeskla just missed, and obviously in that choke point would be able to spread so well. And the thing is, SAKEN was holding the side lane against the Gwen, which is why I feel they felt confident to go for this play without the Viktor there. But as soon as he joined, the difference in the fight is just monumental.
And now it just feels like Vitality.Bee have given everything that they can right now, and it's been shot down. Karmine Corp have been doing such a good job of keeping everything in check. 17 seconds now until the next dragon, and you've kind of thrown everything in the kitchen sink at Karmine Corp, and now you've got to try and find that play again to stop this dragon stack.
I think the problem is, right, Renekton and Volibear, two champions where if you're behind, they feel almost useless. If you're ahead, they are so hard to deal with. And if they get more mountain dragons and a mountain soul, that really makes up for how we said these champions don't necessarily scale as well, like Sion in the late game as a frontliner. On top of that, a mountain soul, when you want to dive backliners, having that extra shielding for SAKEN and Rekkles makes such a massive difference, and they are now one dragon away.
It's not even just the fact you get the shields, right? SAKEN now with the Zhonya's is going to buy all the time he really needs because you've got the CC from the front line, from Hantera to keep him in check. If you get onto Rekkles, that still may not be enough because he's got the Arcane Shift. And honestly, it's been uncoordinated from Vitality.Bee. they haven't actually been able to have Diplex in a position to follow up with Skeanz, to have support for this Nocturne, and Karmine Corp have been doing a great job of kind of pushing back against that.
They're just going to muscle in the mid lane here, and that'll be one inhib tower taken. Cabochard pushing in the bottom side at the same time. Remember, they still have that Baron in their pockets. And that's just going to be the mid lane inhib cranked open. No defense whatsoever from Vitality. They cannot contest. They're almost 10,000 gold down. And with this extra tower or two, that might become a reality. That'll be 2 inhibs taken. And at this point, you gotta believe that KC, after everything in this series, might just push us to 5. They might just keep us going because Jactroll is down and Cabochard ain't stopping yet.
It's the LPL special. We've had those reverse sweeps and Karmine Corp are looking to see if they can do it as well. Do you hear the noise, boys? Because I certainly do.
I hear the blue wall coming down on top of Vitality.Bee like a ton of bricks. The damage is there. Cabochard in the back line as Diplex tries to peel, tries to escape, but he doesn't have anything in the tank. K-Corp, your back-to-back Amazon EU Masters champions, will push us to 5 games. They'll keep themselves in this series, and they will keep their hopes alive.
What a comeback from this team. I mean, game 1 was very messy, but after game 2, Vitality.Bee just looks so much better, and they've been able to bounce back. Honestly, that game 3 where they banned 7 mid laners, I feel like it kind of helped SAKEN because, like, oh yeah, I can just play Viktor and crush them.
Yeah, it just feels like we haven't really seen Vitality.Bee to be able to play through the mid-jungle that we thought, like being able to make some of these early plays. It feels like Karmine Corp are doing such a good job of reading them, having Hantera in position, having 113 in position, and it's been so good to see.
And honestly, I feel like Hantera, this series, has outperformed Jactroll. And even with the fact that the Braum games were pretty subdued, right? Just these 2 Rakan games have been night and day, honestly, and he's had such a massive impact.
And I feel like across the last 2 games, we saw 7 bans towards the mid lane. Game number 3, Diplex is out of the picture. We can just take over. All right, now game number 4, let's ban all the junglers. We're just going through different roles, banning absolutely every single champion. We're going to go to game 5. Finally, we're getting a game 5 series for ourselves this Amazon EU Masters. And K-Corp is on the brink of their first ever reverse sweep in EU Masters history. But can they complete it? We're going to have to find out right after this.